Welcome to Audible Stories. The Lazy Wife. Once upon a time on the Isle of Man, there lived a poor farmer and his beautiful wife near a place by the river bank. They lived in a nice little cottage and owned a bit of land on which they grew potatoes and grazed their cow. Everyone knows fairies often play tricks, and when the fairies were offended, sometimes they called upon the Buggins, a terrible ogres who lived in ruins and forests and by the waterfalls. The Buggins hated to be disturbed. They could turn their shapes and sizes to look like anything and anyone they wished, and so few people had never ever seen them. But those who had seen them said they were enormous creatures, with coarse black hair and wrinkled skin, with red mouths and cloven feet and eyes raging like fire. People often told the story of the Buggin that tore the roof of the church again and again because the church was built on their mountain. And people also said there was a Buggin that lived in the waterfall very nearby the farmer's house. The farmer was hard-working and kind, but his beautiful wife was terribly lazy and liked to lie in bed doing nothing. Her neighbors were forever whispering about her. They called her the Sleeping Beauty. She wears out more blankets than shoes, her next-door neighbor said. This is sad, added another neighbor. An excuse is always nearer to that woman than her apron is. Every morning the farmer woke at dawn and called out to his wife, "Lose an hour in the morning and you'll be looking for it all day." But she only turned over again. "You'll never plow a field by turning it over in your dreams," he said. But she just slumbered on. So he set off to work in that field. Many were the days that he came home for breakfast only to find her still asleep. There was no fire. There was no food. On those days he would build a fire and cook his own gruel. Alas, he would sigh, a cabin with plenty of food is better than a castle with none. Often when he came home for his midday meal, his wife was still asleep. At long last, the farmer decided it was time to play a trick on her. So when he awoke, he fetched some straw from the barn. With that straw he blocked up all the windows in that little cottage. Late in the afternoon he came home and found his wife still in bed, waiting for the day to come. "Hurry," the farmer said. "Come see quickly the sun rise in the west." She quickly climbed out of bed, and the farmer opened the door to show her. The whole sky looked to be on fire, for the sun was actually setting. But the woman was frightened at the sight and asked, "What makes the sun rise in the west?" "Must be the Buggin, by the waterfall," the farmer said. "The hairy one that lives under the waterfall. It's a bad one that doesn't scratch itself. You better be careful or it might come to punish you for your lazy crazy ways." "What do you know of the Buggin?" the wife asked. But the farmer only said, "Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies." Soon after that he went out to go fishing under the bright full moon. As soon as he was gone, the woman realized she was hungry. But there was no bread in the cupboard, and she knew she would have to bake it. She slipped the bolt on the door so the fairies wouldn't catch her baking after sunset. The fairies did not like that kind of laziness by a wife. Then she began to knead the dough. She clapped her cakes as thin as could be and picked up a knife to cut them into circles. When the first one was cut, she brushed the griddle and tossed the cake on the fire. As she picked up her knife and began to cut the second cake, she heard a knock at the door. "Who's there?" she called, but no one answered. At the first knock it was the fairy, who had come to check on the lazy wife baking after the sunset. Then she heard another sound, someone knocking harder and way up higher and louder on the door. "Who's there? Answer me," she asked again. This time it was the buggen sent by the fairies to punish the lazy wife for baking late, and a thick, gravelly voice answered, "Open for me, for I am he." That made no sense, so she ignored the voice. But the voice cried again, "Open for me, for I am he." Before she could say a word, the door burst open, and there stood the hideous buggen. Before she could run, that buggen clutched her by her apron and swung her over its wide shoulder and ran down the hill all the way to the top of the huge waterfall. The woman was terrified. She could hear those roaring waters, and from above she saw the stream turning to spray as it hit the rocks. She knew she would drown as the buggen swung her high into the air, preparing to toss her down the waterfalls. Just then she remembered the knife in her hands. Quick as she could, she cut her apron strings and tumbled onto the ground. She rolled away to a safe pasture by the waterfall, but the buggen tumbled and stumbled and fell forward over her, right into that waterfall. The buggen rolled and bounced, head over heels. People from miles away could hear the creature roaring, "Rumble, rumble, rumble, it is I who tumble, tumble." Then they heard a big splash. The buggen got drowned in the waterfall, and no one saw that buggen ever again. People say that Farmer's beautiful wife learned her lesson. She gave up her lazy ways and became as good as a beautiful wife as a farmer could love and wish for. The lazy wife now always baked bread well before the sunset, so as not to offend the fairy folks again. If you like the story, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you for listening.